members of Congress are the most expensive telemarketers in the U.S. We pay them $170,000 a year just so they can spend a third of their time begging for money. This is something that they hate. We should hate it too.
But that is the way things work, as Lee Drutman, who for years has been writing on the influence of money in US politics, says often for large parts of the day, members of Congress sit in windowless rooms on the phone, going down lists of potential donors, trying to get cash. Tulsi Gabbard, congresswoman from Hawaii, says that shocked her when she came to Washington.
I have heard people who spend anywhere from 6 hours a day or more solely focused on fundraising calls or fundraising meetings or fundraising events. So, it varies, as did my own schedule. It's very disturbing to see the role that money plays in Washington.
Tulsi Gabbard told me she'll now no longer accept donations from big corporations.
Mr. Speaker, for far too long, Big Pharma has played by its own rules, benefiting from skyrocketing.
But she can say that. She's in an incredibly safe seat. For other American politicians in competitive races, it takes a huge amount of spending to get elected. Lee Drutman again.
To run in a typical Senate race, it costs about $10 million. Typical House race, about $1.5 million. They are always raising money. They don't like it, but that's the price of power.
But naturally, those throwing huge amounts of money at politicians expect something back in terms of the way members of Congress or the Senate vote on a huge range of issues. To some, that's tantamount to corruption, but just given the name lobbying.
Tax policy, defense policy, pharmaceutical policy, telecom policy, energy policy. Those are some of the largest areas of lobbying, but it gets down to some very, very small programs as well. Little fun tidbits is that there is a separate butter association and a separate margarine association, which gives you a sense of how parochial some lobbying interests can be.
No butter or margarine lobbyists would speak to us, but we found the closest thing, a milk lobbyist, John Hollay.
1 out of 2 kids don't get enough calcium, vitamin D, and potassium. And if you aren't serving enough dairy milk...
I carry the scarlet L of a lobbyist, but I'm not ashamed of it. Lobbyists provide a great service because we are policy advocates at heart. There's nothing wrong with supporting a member of Congress who advocates on your behalf. That there's nothing wrong with putting your money where your mouth is.
Milk helps kids grow strong. Serve real milk at mealtime.
But what would a milk lobbyist want in terms of legislation in return for the many hundreds of thousands he gives to politicians? Quite a lot, it would seem.
Labor issues. So immigration is a major concern for dairy farmers. 51% of all the milk in the country, or 51% of all the farms in the country have an immigrant labor force of some kind. Trade is hugely important. Taxes, hugely important. Nutrition, that's something that we're very interested in. Environmental standards. There is almost no issue that doesn't touch the dairy industry.
So how did we get here, where milk lobbyists are paying politicians to encourage them to vote a certain way, but so are gun advocates, health insurance companies, big pharmaceuticals, and so on? Well, in 1976, the US Supreme Court decided freedom of speech also meant being free to give as much money as you like to a politician. Since that ruling, lobbying, as it became known, has burgeoned into a massive industry. Academic Lee Drutman again.
So lobbying is about a $3 billion a year industry in reported lobbying, and to get a true picture of the industry, you probably want to double that to be about $6 billion. It's about 10,000 registered lobbyists, but you probably want to at least double that and maybe even triple that to get a true picture of the lobbying industry. If you're a former member of Congress and you become a lobbyist, as many do, you probably earn $1, $2, maybe $3 million a year, depending on who you're working for.
With figures like that, and with neither major party having made any serious steps to change things in terms of campaign finance rules, American politicians look set to continue to chase corporate dollars, leaving many wondering who they're really answerable to.